Today on episode number 561 of the School of Podcasting, we've got podcasting back in a mainstream outlet, and we're talking with Natalie from bizchicks.com. 3 years ago, she was an attendee at Social Media Marketing World. She started her podcast in one direction and expected certain things to happen, and guess what? They didn't. She almost quit multiple times. What did she do to turn things around? What did she do so that this year when she attended Social Media Marketing World, that's right, she was a moderator of a panel. Hit it, ladies.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you are new to the show, welcome aboard. What we do here is I bring my 20 plus years of helping people understand technology. I help you massage your message. I help you tackle the technology, face your fears, flatten that learning curve, and get you not just on the road to podcasting, but podcasting right. Podcasting in a way that you become a person of influence. Our website is schoolofpodcasting.com. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/start. Use the coupon code LISTENER, and that will save you on either your first course or your first membership. Well, I've been talking in the past about how podcasting is getting more and more and more and even more mainstream. And today I got an email from Caine, and he said that, check this out. This is what I love about my audience, because I never would have known about this. In the newly released animated film, Teen Titans, The Judas Contract, which is produced by Warner Brothers, Kevin Smith is in the movie as himself, interviewing a member of the team, I'm assuming that would be one of the Teen Titans, on his podcast, and it's good. And of course, Kevin is known as a fanboy, so he has great questions and brings some levity to the end of the movie after the big final battle scene. And here's a quick clip of that.
So let me ask you this, man. How do you become a Titan exactly? I mean, is there an audition? Do you look at videos? Because I've been working out, I want in.
Well, Kev, I guess the most important thing to being a Titan is to have a strong sense of family. Some of us don't have our own, so we support the ones that do.
Thank you, Caine, for sending that in. You can find him at adventurefrequency.wordpress.com. And the old Titan there was talking about family. And wait till you hear the adorable way that my guest, Natalie Echdahl, uses her children to kick off the show. And I actually this is a great example, in my opinion, of a great podcast introduction. And I'm going to let you listen to it, and then we'll dissect it on the other side.
I'm so glad brought to you by A. Weber.
She's busy juggling her own internet business.
A tween.
Whatever.
A toddler. An infant.
A labradoodle.
And her husband.
What's for dinner, sweetie?
In her spare time, she talks to successful female entrepreneurs.
And a few cool dudes about their journey and how they make it all work.
Welcome to the Biz Chicks Podcast.
With your host, entrepreneur, MBA, and mom,
Natalie Eckdal.
Hey, Biz Chicks, and I'm also going to give a shout out to the cool dudes listening in today, since I know some of you want to check out these takeaways from Social Media Marketing World.
Oh, I love that, because in basically 45 seconds, she's running an internet business. She's an MBA. She's a mom. She's talking to successful female entrepreneurs and some cool dudes. And the sound effects, obviously the professional intro, if I had to guess, that smells of music radio creative. And I just love the fact it was like, bam. And then she gets right into it and says, you guys want to hear about the takeaways from Social Media Marketing World, which is what the episode was about. So if somebody says, what does a great intro sound like? And you don't need, Mike would love to hear me say, you don't need music radio creative. If you just said those things yourself, that'd be fine. I love music radio creative. And I think a great professionally done intro does set you up to sound like a pro. But to me, I love that. And so the cool thing about Natalie is, and why she's on the show, is I listened to her show and she was saying how she had been doing it for 3 years. And she, in her own episode, explained some things that just didn't work. And I was like, ooh, I want to dive a little deeper into that. So she does have some things coming up. She's like the queen, I guess, of masterminds. In fact, if you've ever thought of starting your own mastermind, she has some really great insights and episodes on that. But if you want to sign up for one of her masterminds, they start in May. So you would want to go over to BizChix. And again, you'll hear this a lot, BizChix.com. And you can click on the work with me. And she's also going to have a live event in October. And why I brought her on is here's somebody who 3 years ago kind of had an idea where she was going. And now she's landed someplace completely different from where she thought she was. And at sometimes was really ready to quit. So with that, I want to welcome Natalie Echdahl to the program.
Thanks, Dave. It's so fun. I haven't seen you in a while. I think since Podcast Movement when we were drinking margaritas.
Yeah. And we shared an Uber. I think it was at a Podfest or Podcast Movement. I forget which one.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're my Uber buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go back to the very beginning. What inspired you to start a podcast?
Well, I was an entrepreneur at that time and looking for content to listen to. And I actually found podcasts through Dave Ramsey, which I think is such an interesting way to find them. But he started getting onto like iHeartRadio, and then he said you could go to iTunes and listen to him. And then that opened up a whole new world for me. And I must have searched for entrepreneur. And can you guess which podcast came up at that time?
Maybe a little guy called John Lee Dumas, I would think.
Yes.
There you go.
So I started listening to Entrepreneur on Fire and loved hearing, about other entrepreneurs' stories. And through John, I discovered many other podcasters because he was also interviewing other podcasters. So through him, I started listening to Amy Porterfield, Pat Flynn, Michael Stelzner, and Chris Ducker, and basically any podcaster he had on his show, I started listening to them as well. I really loved the entrepreneurial story, but at the time, John was primarily interviewing men. So if you looked at his guest list, it was about, 80 to 90% men and 20% women or so. And when he would talk to women, he wasn't asking the questions I wanted answered. And so for some reason, I still don't quite know how I had the gumption to start my own podcast, but I decided that I would love to interview women entrepreneurs. And I thought, which is really funny to me at the time, I was telling some friends this recently, I really thought I was going to, by interviewing enough women, solve my own issue of work-life balance, like how to, I just thought I needed to talk to enough women and then I would figure out work-life balance. But what I've learned is that there's no perfect answer to that. And so, but yeah, that was my inspiration was listening to John's podcast. And then he was launching this little course called Podcaster's Paradise. And he said anyone could podcast. And I was fascinated by that. So I was one of his founding members. So I signed up with his, with Podcaster's Paradise when he only had like a landing page, just one page on the internet. And I was like, okay, I'll give this guy a try. And so that's how I learned a podcast.
Now, do you have any kind of broadcast audio kind of background?
No, I grew up listening to talk radio. My parents don't really listen to a lot of music, so we listen to AM talk radio in the car. And I always imagined that it would be really exciting to be a broadcaster and to have a radio show, like a talk show. But it just seemed like it was a type of career where you didn't have a lot of control over where you lived, what your schedule was. And also financially, it wasn't as lucrative as what I was looking for.
No, not at all. Do you remember what your gear was when you first started out?
Oh my goodness. A Logitech headset.
Nice.
And my husband was doing my editing and he, very quickly upgraded us to a Heil PR40 because he was having to I'm like, why are we spending so much money on all this equipment? Like, I'm not even sure how this is going to go. And he said, because it's going to save me hours of editing.
Well, how did you feel the first time you went to talk into the microphone?
I will never forget that moment. I thought I was going to throw up.
Okay.
I was in my master bedroom closet because that's where I recorded my first episodes because there's lots of podcasters that record in closets because you can get good acoustics. And with the Logitech, you needed a really quiet space because it picks up everything. And I had met my first interviewee at New Media Expo, and I met Jen Page, who's a filmmaker. And I remember being terrified about hitting record. And I was so nervous. And the only reason I did it was because I had an appointment with someone and I didn't want to let her down. It was really terrifying. But then I loved it at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. Once the red light goes on and you realize you don't explode, you're okay with that. Now, what was your schedule when you first started? Was you doing weekly or biweekly, or what was the schedule?
Well, my mentor, John Lee Dumas, had 7 days a week. And I figured, well, if he can do 7 days a week and he's a single guy, I'm a mom with 2 kids. I had 2 children at the time. And then right before I launched, I found out I was pregnant with number 3. So I was like, well, if he can do 7 days a week, I think I can do 5. And so I started off with 5 episodes a week. And it was an insane schedule. I did that until I got to 75 episodes.
Holy cow. So you're pregnant and doing 5 shows a week, plus 2 kids and a husband and a dog, right? If I remember.
And another business.
And
yes.
another business. Other than that, you had tons of free time.
It was really insane. And the positive is, like, people ask me if I would go back and do things differently sometimes. And I don't think I would, because I got better at interviewing so quickly. So I was able to self-correct, doing multiple interviews in a day and doing so many per week. I feel like I got better, like in terms of the time frame, in a matter of months, I improved my interview skills and even my format. So it was a grueling schedule, though, and not approachable for my lifestyle. And when I talked to some friends that were listening, at that point, I really didn't have a lot of connection with my audience. I remember talking to one of my girlfriends, and she's like, "Yeah, I can't keep up with all these episodes. Like, I like them, but I'm having to skip around because I can't keep up with them." So I learned that I was also doing more episodes that maybe my audience could keep up with.
And you say you improved your interview skills. What do you think you were doing better that you weren't when you first started out?
At first, I was so nervous that I had to write a lot of my questions down. And later, I learned to be more conversational and to ask the questions that I was wondering about or that I thought the audience might be wondering about, and to dig in a little deeper and clarify things. And I feel like I just got more comfortable behind the mic and the whole process and settled into it a little bit. And it just became more of a flow. And so it was helpful to do a lot at once and then to just kind of find my own way instead of, John's show was great for learning, and he tends to ask the same questions of every interviewee. And that didn't really fit with my style. So I was able to figure out my own style and my own approach.
And when you first started out, did you have any kind of expectations?
Yes. Okay. I thought I would be able to replicate, John's success. John had enormous success in terms of growing his audience very quickly and started getting sponsorship interest, within, I think, 6 months of starting his podcast. And my numbers just did not grow at the pace that John's had. And, it was frustrating because, I thought if I build it, they will come, the audience and then the sponsors. And that didn't happen. And there was a number of times that I thought about quitting because, I was taking time away from my family, from my other business, and from my TV. So that kind of went out the window. There was really not, my entertainment in the evening was podcasting.
Mm. So why didn't you quit?
Because I loved it.
The lovely, I hate that it's so much work, but I can't stop because I love it. I love that. That's awesome.
I loved connecting with the people I was interviewing and later the audience. And I couldn't imagine not being a podcaster anymore. It became part of my identity. And I became very connected to the podcasting industry, the industry. We have these Facebook groups where we talk podcasting, nerdy stuff. And I became connected to this community of people that enjoy doing the same thing. And it really was something that I couldn't imagine stopping. So what I did instead of stopping is I changed. Every time I've thought about quitting, and there's been several times, I think about what it is that's not working for me, and then I change it. So I went from 5 episodes a week to 3 episodes a week to 2 episodes a week to my schedule now, which is 1 episode a week.
To do that Dave Jackson thing where I break into the interview, just pointing out, if you don't like your show, if it's too hard, if it's not doing what you wanted it to do, you can change it, just like Natalie did. Just wanted to point that out. She's like, look, this doesn't work. I got 3 kids, a dog, a husband. What'd she do? She changed her schedule.
And over time, I've changed my format. I used to do strictly an interview-based show. And now I kind of alternate. There's not a set, rhyme or reason to it. It's really what's working best for myself and my audience. But I occasionally interview now only subject matter experts that I think can benefit my audience. And I do my own business trainings on air, and I do on-air coaching calls.
So I know in your episode that you talked about, you wish you had started doing solo shows earlier. Why?
Well, interview shows are fantastic because they build your personal network. So I've done 200 interviews at least of women entrepreneurs, or close to that. And so I have this network of women literally around the world that I could connect with. Like I can probably fly into almost any city or state and find someone that I have interviewed or somehow met at this point through the podcast. But they really help build someone else's business, not your own. And I was hoping to build a business through this podcast. And as I looked at what I wanted to do, which was to work with women entrepreneurs, I needed to show my expertise. And while during an interview, you can chime in and share your knowledge, it's really about showcasing the person that you're interviewing. And so in order to show my expertise, I needed to do a solo show. And it was really scary to do that there. And still to this day, it's more difficult for me to do a solo episode than it is an interview.
Oh, I got to jump in again. I love that answer. So here again, if you want to build your network and get to know people in your niche, do an interview show. If you want to showcase your expertise, then do a solo show. And I know a lot of people say if you have a guest, it'll help build your audience. Read Jared Easley's book, Quit Chasing Influencers. That strategy does not work. Back to Natalie. Is it just you're just not used to talking to the wall, or?
Well, content creation is a struggle for me. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So it takes me a while to get started because I know what's going to go on and what's going to happen. It's going to take me longer. So I usually procrastinate and get things to the last minute and then make things happen. And it comes out great. It always comes out great. And it's always so much easier than I thought it was going to be. But if I allow myself too much time to work on it, I'm just going to feel like if I have 8 hours, it's going to take me 8 hours to put an episode together.
So you changed your format, you changed your schedule. Did your audience hunt you down with pitchforks and torches?
No, my numbers went bonkers. So
really?
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed is that I was getting a little bored with the interviews. I kept having holistic health coaches pitch me to be on my show. Like I interviewed one and then I had more and more coming, and other business coaches wanted to be on my show. And it was really, I feel like after I had done all the interviews I had completed, that I really had heard most stories. Everybody's story is interesting, but there were very few news stories that were interesting to me. And I realized that if I'm bored with my show, then my audience is likely bored as well. And so I was a little bored with the whole thing. My audience has really liked it. And the thing that they love the most, though, are these on-air coaching calls, which I started doing last spring. I think they would be happy if I did them every episode.
Now, have you ever had anybody push back when you say, hey, we're going to do this coaching call. Oh, by the way, this is going to be public in a couple weeks. Have you had anybody wet their pants and say, what?
Well, I set it up a little differently. They apply to be coached on air.
Okay.
And what was interesting is that I put in my audience, if you'd like to do an on-air coaching call, you can apply here. And the first time I did it, I was so nervous that no one was going to apply and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then what shocked me is that a number of people in my audience I'd never connected with or worked with before applied. But what really shocked me was my clients, my current clients, my mastermind clients and my coaching clients applied to be coached on air. So I was like, okay, wow, I didn't think any of my current clients would want to be coached on air. So that's been really fun to showcase some of my clients. And it's easier for me to coach someone on air when I know more about their background versus just, fresh, let's dig in and get started. But it's been terrifying. I think the way I felt at the very beginning when I first hit record in that master bedroom closet all alone is how I feel when I hit publish on an on-air coaching call, especially the very first ones I did, because I was so concerned about, I didn't know what people would think about them and what people might say about them. And if other coaches might chime in and have opinions about my style or my advice. And it's been pleasantly amazing. People give me they love them. They binge listen to them, and other coaches, they tell me they listen to them and they enjoy hearing them, and just comparing our different styles. And no one has sent me any mean notes or letters criticizing them. So it's been really great. And then a lot of people can't afford to work with a coach. And so for them, they say they're able to get, some advice or imagine, if I'm coaching them. And so I'm able to help more people than just the one person I'm coaching in the moment.
So she changed her format, tried a new segment of coaching people online, was really thinking, especially other coaches, were going to judge her. She was going to get all this negativity. And so many times we think we're going to have negativity just spewing on us, and it just didn't happen. So keep that in mind, that most people, if they don't like your stuff, just won't listen. You're not going to get this giant wave of negativity. When you first started out, how were you interacting with your audience? Were you getting any feedback via email? How was that going at the beginning?
It took a while. I can remember the first person that tweeted me. In fact, we're still connected on Twitter, and we're connected now on Instagram. Like, I'll never forget it. Like, the first time someone tweeted my episode out, that was very exciting, but it didn't happen for months. So it was months of crickets. And the first, few emails I got were very encouraging. And just for anyone listening that's a fan of podcasts, if you like a podcast, let the host know, because, like you said, we're sitting here alone behind a mic and we don't know what's happening out there. And so occasionally I would get something, an email, maybe a tweet, maybe a comment on the show notes, but they were very rare. And that first year, I really came to, I had my baby. I started in January. I had my third child in September, and it came to around November, and I wasn't sure. I had batched a bunch of interviews and they were running out, and I had to decide if I was going to keep going or not.
Wow. I'm just sitting here trying to ponder a newborn plus what's the ages of your children at that point?
My older son was 2.5. So I had 2.5, a newborn, and my daughter, oh my goodness, she just turned 15. So she must've been 12.
Oh man. Where do you store your cape when you're not superhero here?
Thank you.
Well, when did you decide to start a Facebook group? How long into it when you went,
It was really that turning point. So I had been very active in the She Podcasts Facebook group. I think when I joined it, it had about 300 members, and now it has over 5,000 members. And that's how I got to know Jessica Kupferman and Elsie Escobar, who run that group and podcast now. So they didn't have a podcast when they first started. And I was participating so much in their group and in the Podcasters Paradise group. And I realized, gosh, I really love this community that's happening here. And I've always, in what I do just locally, I love to create community. I love to get friends together and bring people from, different parts of my life together. And I thought, well, I think I will try starting a Facebook group, and I need to monetize this business. Clearly, sponsorship isn't going to happen. So almost simultaneously, I started the Facebook group, and I put out there that I was going to start my first mastermind. Paid mastermind.
Yes. What kind of launch plan did you have for that?
There was no launch plan.
Well, maybe that explains some of this then. Because you didn't do the, what's the guy's name? Jeff,
Jeff Walker.
Yeah, you didn't do the Jeff Walker formula thing. And
No. So my first attempt was when I was like, I don't know, a month from giving birth, maybe 6 weeks from giving birth. So this was in like July of 2014. And I decided I needed to start monetizing. My baby was coming and I needed to get some things going before he came. And so on my podcast and to my email, my very small podcast listenership and my very small email list, I shared that I was starting a accountability group, and it would be a Facebook group, and we would have touch points in the group. And I don't remember what I charged, but nobody signed up. Not one person, not even my mom, Dave.
Okay, I got to jump in here because we're kind of laughing as she told the story. I want you to stop and think about this. You're not sure if you should do it. You've got that a little bit of that whole imposter syndrome, but you decide to tell everyone you're going to start a mastermind group, and then nobody signs up. How would that make you feel? Holy cow. Well, listen to how she handles this. I thought it was awesome.
So what I actually did, because I wanted to get some experience, is I invited some people that had been interacting with me to join for free. So I had 6 to 8 people that came into that group, and We were together for about a month, but I didn't have any calls. We were just in a Facebook group together, and it kind of fizzled out. So plus I was about to give birth.
Yeah, that's
so, you do some crazy things when you're pregnant. If you've ever been around pregnant women, at the very end of your pregnancy, you're even a little crazy, extra crazy, and the hormones are raging. And I'm sure people were like, well, Natalie, I might like to work with you, but not when you're about to have a baby. Like, this does not make sense. So one thing that's interesting, and I like to say we all have like this spotlight syndrome on us where we think that the world is watching everything that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, no one but me and the people that were in there for free, 8 people, 9 of us know that people didn't sign up to pay, that it ended up being a small free group. As far as everybody else knows, I started my first mastermind then. So I think it's great. I love trying new things. I love launching things, and they're not always successful. And it doesn't stop me. I just learn something from that moment, from that experience. And then I iterate and try something new, and I don't let it take me down, or at least I don't let it take me down for too long.
So what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I learned that timing is important, not only in your personal life, but in your audience's life. So it's the end of summer. Who wants to start a new group in August? That's just weird. So, and also it wasn't a good timing for me personally. And I needed to give myself more leadway to it, more of a runway before launching.
Yeah.
And I think it's always great when you're going to launch something to kind of know some people in advance that are probably going to sign up to, when I'm working with clients and they're wanting to launch something, I'll say, well, can you kind of think in your mind 3 or 4 people that would want to do this, that you could call them and they'd say yes. And I didn't have that kind of connection with people at that time to do that.
Now that you're starting to interact with your audience, what is something your audience has said to you that maybe impacted you the most?
If this was the only thing that ever happened, these 3 years of podcasting were worth it. I had a woman sign up to work with me in a strategy session, and which I do. It's like a one-time 60-minute coaching session. And she told me that she had listened to me in the hospital while her infant daughter was recovering from heart surgery. And she said, I couldn't listen to music because I couldn't handle the emotions of it. And I couldn't watch TV because sometimes the topics were hitting too close to home, or people it'd be comedy and people were laughing. And so I found podcasts and I found your show, and you kept me company in the hospital while I watched over my daughter, who was 4 months old, recovering from surgery.
Wow.
And I was blown away. And I just never imagined that I could impact someone in that way. And just it's almost like holding someone's hand, So, I mean, honestly, Dave, I really feel like if I never made a dime from working with my audience, if no one ever listened but this one woman, all of this time and energy was worth it.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. Holy cow. When you started your podcast, how did you think? It sounds like you thought you were going to do the sponsorship thing. How have you decided to monetize it? It sounds like you have a couple different irons in the fire.
I realized I needed to do something that I had a little more control of. I couldn't control sponsors coming on board. And I love consulting people and helping them with their businesses. And I love talking to people about business. And I have, as you shared at the beginning, a deep business background. And so I decided to try again this whole mastermind concept and try it a little differently and work with my audience. So offer my services in a group format and one-on-one format.
Nice. And is it something where you have a group of people sign up and then sometimes they want one-on-one, or do they kind of bounce back and forth? Or
so at this point, I've evolved to it's been an evolution. I've tried lots of different things, and so the streams of revenue I have going on in my business right now are one-on-one coaching, strategy sessions, which are a one-time coaching session. And then I have masterminds, which are for 8 women at a time. And I have a VIP membership site, and that's with women that have worked with me in the past in some capacity. So I know about them and their business, and they're monetizing their business. So they're not brand new. They are bringing in an income into their business. And so they're networking and connecting in that group.
Where did those ideas come from?
No, I love the concept of a membership site, and it really fits with my personality of wanting to bring my friends together. So my clients, I'm wanting to have a space to help them connect with each other and to network with each other. And so it's become really fantastic to have this small VIP community. I studied membership sites for a while, and I looked at different options for that particular stream of revenue. And I didn't want to grow something really big. Like I didn't want thousands of members. And so I'm limiting it to 150. And I came up with that number. It's called the Dunbar number. It's basically the capacity we have in our brain for social connections. So when they study tribes of people, they tend to create a new tribe once they get to 150 people. In large corporate spaces, they tend to like create a new space or a new head of a division at about 150 people. So I thought, oh, well, that's a great number. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm keeping it to 150 people so we can keep our social connections, and know who everybody is. So I try to do it a little differently. I love to look at what other people are doing and pull things from my background and my experience and put a little Natalie spin on it.
Well, the interesting thing is you said you started off thinking you're going to get into some sort of advertising. And I always tell people, if you take the John Lee Dumas approach, he did a daily show for 6 months before he got a sponsor. If you do a weekly show, that ends up being about 3.5 years of content. Mm-hmm. So here you are 3 years later. How did you get your sponsor with AWeber?
So when John started, he had like almost no competition, right? So if you go back to when he started, there were very few podcasts and there was no daily podcast. So what he did was brand new and interesting and got him press and got him a lot of interest from people that he interviewed. And I learned about this at a conference recently, this book called Blue Ocean Strategy. Have you heard of it, Dave?
I've heard the phrase. I've not really dug too deep into it.
Yeah. So it really, like, sometimes I hear other people explain things better than I can. Some things I know intuitively, but then people write these amazing books and they help me like have a phrase or a way to describe it. So the blue ocean is what we're all looking for, which is a non-competitive space in order to like thrive and grow our business or our podcast or whatever it is. And it's kind of what we talk about now about niching down. So really the entrepreneurial space is now a red ocean, which means there's sharks in the water and there's blood being spent and there's a lot of competition. So I really think the entrepreneurial podcasting space is a red ocean at this point, and no one can replicate what John did. I haven't actually seen anybody completely replicate his success to the level that he's had it. And, and I've been watching this space for 4 years now. So when we can't just take strategies other people were doing when it's a different time and space, like we're in a red ocean now. So anyone that's thinking of launching or finding that their podcast right now is not growing as quickly as they'd like it to, it's probably better to niche down and find your own special spin on things, special way of doing things, because you're probably in a red ocean and need to shift things to get to some kind of a blue ocean where there's less competition.
Absolutely. And don't name your show, Kite Flying on Fire. That's that's not going to be.
No, nothing on fire.
No,
Yes.
No more on fire. We're retiring that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, but finding my sponsor. So I was intentional going to Podcast Movement this summer about talking to sponsors there because I really wanted to have a sponsor for my show. And I saw that AWeber was going in advance of the conference, and I tweeted them that I was looking forward to seeing them there. And then I was able to stop by their booth and, well, this was all on purpose, and say hi. And they immediately asked, I said, hey, I'm Natalie. I'm a customer. And I tweeted you guys and I just wanted to come and say hi. And Tom Tate, who's runs their podcast, he was there with a whole mic setup. Well, they were kind of across from the Libsyn booth, right? So you probably saw them. Mm-hmm. And they were inviting people to interview on air. And he's like, oh, great. You want to come do an interview? And I was like, oh, when do you want to do it? And they're like, right now. And I'm not a very spontaneous person, Dave. I'm kind of a planner. But at conferences, I try to be spontaneous and say yes to things that I wouldn't normally say yes to. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And it went really well. It was a lot of fun. It was a video interview. And then afterwards, I told them that, do they ever sponsor podcasts, and that I was interested in that. And Tom introduced me to their VP of marketing, who was there at the event, and I was able to speak to him, and they were interested in following up. And then I spoke to them again one more time at the conference. I felt like it was a great match for my audience, and I'm a user of their system, and it would be very authentic to have them on my show. And yeah, I don't know how much you want to dig into it, but they've been my sponsor for the last 6 months. It's been fantastic.
Well, and that works perfect, because I always tell people when you can promote a product that you use and like, it makes it a whole lot easier than going, I think this is going to be cool if you try it. Blah, blah, when it's a little more authentic that way. So
yeah, cool. I actually just saw Jared Easley. I was at Social Media Marketing World, and I told him, I said, thank you so much, because I don't think I would have this sponsorship if I didn't have the opportunity to speak to them in person, because that personal connection then carried us through to the relationship that we have now. And it doesn't happen fast. I think that's what people, most of us are solopreneurs, right? Or have small teams, and we can make decisions really quickly. Like, you can decide tomorrow to air this or not air it, or you can decide who's going to be next on your show and whether or not to say yes or no to a sponsor. But when you're dealing with a larger company like AWeber, they have like a corporate headquarters, right, with a slide in it, and hundreds of people working there. They don't make a decision in a week. This took months to discuss, negotiate. People go on vacation. People have to give approval. Contracts are signed. Lawyers are involved. It's not a fast process. So we started the conversation in July, and then I think their first episode was the very end of September, beginning of October.
Wow. Yeah, so a little patience will be needed in some cases. Holy cow, neat.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Social Media Marketing World. Let's talk about that, because 3 years ago you were probably in the audience, I'm going to guess?
Yeah, I remember sitting in the audience thinking, wow, I wonder if someday I could be a speaker here. That would be really cool.
Fast forward 3 years and...
And I was asked to speak and lead a panel of amazing podcasters. I'm still amazed that it all happened. And I actually, it's funny because I actually manifested the ticket in my mind. I'll tell you how it happened. So I was wanting to go to the conference this year. I've gone, out of the last 4 years, including this year, I've gone 3 times. So I didn't go last in 2016, but I went the other 3 years. And so last fall I was thinking, gosh, I'd really love to go to this conference, and they keep raising the prices, to create scarcity. And I looked at the price and I said, nope, I'm not buying a ticket because they're going to give me a ticket. I'm going to speak there. And the next week I got an email from them saying, Natalie, would you be interested in leading a panel in the podcasting track? Amy Porterfield has already said yes. So she's one of my favorite podcasters. I was like, well, let me think about that for a second. So Amy Porterfield was on the panel. I was on the panel, and I actually had some input into the panel. I recommended Mike Morrison, who has Membership Guys podcast, because that helped me learn about membership sites. And I love that it's very niche, and Mike's in a blue ocean. And then they got Shailene Johnson, who has Build Your Tribe and the Shailene Show, to do the closing keynote. And she agreed to be on the panel as well. So I just got back from leading that panel, and literally every podcaster every big podcaster who was speaking there or at the conference was in that room. It was like the who's who of podcasting at watching the panel. It was really great.
Now, did you think you were going to throw up again?
I didn't feel like I wanted to throw up beforehand, but I did a little bit afterwards, after it all sunk in. It was really exciting. I'm glad I didn't think about who was going to be in the room. I was so focused on creating good content and learning new things from these podcasters that I admire. So it was great. Do
you think the 3 years of podcasting equipped you to do that panel?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And, it's not easy to interview other podcasters because we're used to being in control of the interview. So all 3 of them are fantastic interviewers. So if I wasn't at the top of my game, any one of them could have taken over the panel and become the moderator. So it was great. I felt like we kept it conversational. The panel was about using your podcast as a marketing tool for your business. So all of us, our podcast is very important to our business. And so I felt like everybody in the audience learned something or something new. So it was a lot of fun.
Now, I can't let you get out of here before we start talking about how are you promoting your podcast? Any strategies of growing your audience?
So one of the things that I'm doing is I create a custom image for every episode, and I use that on social media. And I found that's been very helpful. I didn't do that initially. And also I've been playing around with some Facebook ads just to create awareness and just to create new listeners. So I love when people just find my show. That's the top of my, business funnel. People find me and like me. And really at this point, 95 to 100% of my clients are listeners. So I really prefer to work with people that have listened to me and already decided they've liked me, because they just sign up to work with me and I don't have to sell myself. I don't like having to sell myself. So those are kind of like the main things. Being on other shows is great. I don't have as much time as I'd like to, but I really found that just being a speaker and out there more, out at conferences, has impacted my numbers as well.
When I think back to radio, when I was growing up, there were always these big, wars against each other and things like that. And I know you've done things with Katie Kremitzos from Biz Women Rock and Jessica, right, from She Podcast.
Yeah.
These are all people that are kind of going after your same demographic of women entrepreneurs. Have you found that to be beneficial as well?
Definitely. I actually sponsored She Podcasts because I don't always offer them, but occasionally I offer women in podcasting masterminds. So it's all women podcasters. They're amazing and really fun. And I was wanting to do them for a few years and I wasn't able to get enough people. I would get like 3 people and then I couldn't fill the group. And so at PodFest 2015, where I think I met you for the first time, is that right? Yes, 2016.
They all
Yes,
blur together after a while.
Last year, Jessica Kupferman was there, and she and I've been friends for a while. And I was telling her, I'm thinking about maybe I should sponsor She Podcasts. And so I sponsored her show, and it included a link into their group. So of going to my mastermind. So that was great. And that helped me fill 2 groups from that one sponsorship. So I think as podcasters, if we have businesses, we should consider sponsoring other podcasts that are in the niche we're targeting. So that's been another way that I knew that I would get listeners from that sponsorship, but also clients as well. And I did. I got one-on-one coaching clients, mastermind clients, and new listeners.
Well, for the person that's now thinking where you are 3 years ago, that maybe I should start a podcast, maybe somebody isn't saying the things and asking the questions that I wish they would ask, what would you say to that person?
Mm-hmm. I would test out your niche concept in a Facebook group. That's where I would start. If you don't already have an audience, I didn't start with an audience. I didn't have a big blog following like some people that just seem to have come out of nowhere. A lot of times they already have an audience that they're tapping into and bringing over into their podcast. So I didn't have that. So if I was starting out right now, I would actually try to build some form of a community before I launched my podcast. And because Facebook Live is so big right now, if I would make myself be comfortable on video, even if I wasn't, and I would build a connection with that group as kind of the leader of the group and bring them into the podcast and, show them my show art and get their opinions. And even if it was only like, 50 or 100 people, it's still better than 0. And to have some people to interact with and build community around and build a podcast with would be really exciting. My Facebook group is the reason why I have continued to podcast. I podcast for the women in my Facebook group, and they're very connected to my show. And sometimes I take conversations that are happening in my Facebook group and create an episode out of them. I've had people call in and give feedback, or I've done a few episodes that are like online tools, and my audience will call. I'll ask people to call in, and they'll give their feedback. So having a place like that, whether it's for me, a Facebook group's the best place, but for other people, it might be a LinkedIn group or a Slack group. Having a place where you have community, to me, is why I podcast. I podcast for my community.
Nice. And there are probably women, even men right now going, you have to ask her this question. You've got 3 kids, a husband, a dog, and a bunch of businesses apparently all over the place. How is there such a thing as work-life balance?
No, there is not, Dave. Good thing that my podcast didn't end once I answer that question, right? Because then I'd be done. The answer is, Natalie, there's no work-life balance. What I have learned is that there are periods of, where I'm more balanced towards family. Like my time is more family focused. My time is more business focused. Like tonight, I'm actually going to stay here till I'm at my office. I'm going to work till 8:00, and my husband Mark is going to be on kid duty and take care of all that. But I also had a break in the middle of the day. I picked up my daughter from high school and got her Starbucks, and we hung out for a little bit. So I think it's not work-life balance, because you can't really balance it exactly. There's some times where podcasting is taking more of my time, or I was just at a conference, so that was all work and almost no family, and sometimes it's more family. So I feel like it all kind of balances out over time, but it's not all balanced day to day, if that makes sense.
And it's hard to put a 2-year-old on a schedule when you're like, no, it's not time to, your tantrum doesn't come for another hour and a half. So you're early.
No,
that doesn't work.
No, that doesn't work.
I need to talk to the gentleman for just a second. Okay. So I know it's called bizchicks.com, but I found Natalie. Number one, I met you at Podcast Movement. And then I heard you mentioned on She Podcast, and I'd already discovered She Podcast. And then I met Katie, and I got to say, gentlemen, I know that we don't have the equipment to call ourselves females. There's some really good content, so don't get turned off because it's a thing for women. Because I've learned, I really liked your series on monetization, and I'm another fan of your coaching calls. So, gentlemen, I'm telling you, go over to bizchicks.com. And again, that's bizchix.com. It's one of those now, you're one of the podcasts. When I see that come down the line, it's like, should I listen to this? Oh, look, it's Natalie. Good. And you're right to the top of the list.
Dave, that is the coolest thing. Thank you so much. So I do podcasts. I talk to women. I used to initially try to talk to women and men, but now I just talk to women. But I love that men are listening. And I was able to meet a few guys at the conference that said they listen, which is so fun. A couple other tips I wanted to share, because we can be nerdy podcasters here.
Sure.
Is for my on-air coaching calls, because I was hearing people kept emailing me and telling me, I love your on-air coaching calls. I binge listen to them. I made it easy for them. And if you go through my feed, you'll see in brackets, I have on-air coaching call in brackets so people can easily find them. And I've been sharing that on the podcast so they can do that. And then I've also created landing pages for when I podcast according to a topic. So I've done some series of topics. So recently I did one called Biz Chicks Monetize. Before that, I did the Small Business Reality series. I did a productivity series before that, and a mastermind series before that. And so if you go to my bizchicks.com, you can click on a button, and even the on-air coaching calls have their own landing page as well. So people can go and binge listen to that topic, because that's what I find the audience tends to like to do. Like if they hear an episode and they like that topic, they want to hear more on that topic. So that's been a fun little thing to do as well.
Yeah. The mastermind one I listened to after I had started a mastermind, and then I kind of like yours, it just kind of fizzled out. And as I was listening to it, I was like, I should have listened to this beforehand. Oh, yep, that works. And you just explained every problem I had. And I was like, very good stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in a strategy session, or if you want to apply to be in our mastermind or apply for some coaching, check out Natalie over at bizchicks.com. So Natalie, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dave. This was a highlight of 2017. Thank you so much.
Well, there you go. And there you go. Yeah, I think it was on her show. They did a roundtable. It was her, Jessica Kupferman, and Elsie Escobar from She Podcast, Jessica Rhodes, and Katie from Biz Women Rock. Biz is B-I-Z, bizwomenrock.com. And they were all talking about being female entrepreneurs. And then they had a conversation about doing the old in-out post-baby. And I felt like, you always wonder, gentlemen, like what women talk about in the bathroom when they go in there for so long. I think that's what they were talking about. And I was like, I felt like I just discovered this pot of gold of information that I really wasn't supposed to know. It was really, really an interesting conversation and a peek inside the female psyche. So as much as their shows, I don't feel are really that female specific, I think their information is just as good for all genres, genders, or whatever word you want to use. I do listen to most of those shows. They're good stuff. So thank you very much, Natalie. And she's got 20 years in helping, in business. She was voted one of the top business podcasts in 2014. So thank you so much for coming on the show. One last thing about Natalie. I want to play, number one, because it's just adorable. I want to play the end of her show, and you'll hear where, again, it's a single call to action, but this is an adorable advertisement. I would, if you do ads like this every week, I'm like, less of you, more ads. Give me more ads. Check this out.
And here are my sons, Tahoe and Jet, with a little more encouragement on that matter.
Hi, Big Sticks. Happy Sticks. This is us, Tahoe and Jet.
Can you say, you should mastermind with my mama?
You should mastermind with my mama. Mama.
Say, Go to bizchicks.com.
Go to bigchicks.com.
BizChicks.
Bigchicks.com.
Not big chicks. Buddy, look at Mama. Biz.
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 Chicks.
BizChicks.com.
Bigchicks.com.
Join the mastermind.
Join the mastermind. Join the mastermind. With my mama.
You have been listening to the Biz Chicks podcast.
Don't be a stranger and connect with Natalie and her guests today at bizchicks.com. That's
BIZCHIX.com.
As we start to wrap things up, I want to remind you, if you haven't bought your podcast movement ticket yet, I will be speaking there in Anaheim. This is out in August. Find it at podcastmovement.com. Use the coupon code SOP10. That will save you 10% off your ticket. So that's one thing. If you want to go, it really is a great time. I'm looking forward. I mentioned, you heard Jared Easley's name twice here. Get to hang out with Dan Franks and basically everybody else. For me, it's like summer camp. I get to see all my friends again. And also, you know, you heard, if one of the things that has been holding you back starting a podcast was, well, I'm not sure where I want to go. This is why I want to have Natalie on. Did you hear how many times she thought she was going to quit? Then she started a Facebook group. Then she thought she was going to quit. It was kind of getting boring. So she started doing on-air coaching calls. And then she started this. And then you just make it up as you go along. You don't have to be a master. She was worried what people were going to think. Were coaches going to judge the way she coached? You just do it. And so here she was. She thought she was going to follow in the footsteps of back, 3 years ago. Everybody was like, oh, okay, I'll do an interview show. I'll interview entrepreneurs. I'll get sponsorships. And it just wasn't that easy. So what did she do? She played to her strengths. Well, I like working with people. I like building communities. I like working with women. And so what did she do? She basically started doing that. She does the thing she loves. She's getting paid for it. And I think it's awesome. So I really loved her story and wanted to bring her on to say, see, it's not a statue. You can change it. And eventually you come across something that seems to work. And by doing those first groups, think about that first group that kind of fizzled out. She learned from that in terms of, okay, how can I do this better in the future? And then that group led to more groups. And now she's to me, I think she's like one of the, if somebody said, give me an expert on masterminds, I'd say right there, go talk to Natalie. I know other people might say, Dan, the guy from 48 Days to the Work You Love. And he's definitely but I'm like, in listening to Natalie's show, she's a mastermind expert in my book, along with marketing and her background in business. So at any rate, speaking of business, if you'd like to start a podcast, I would really, really, really love to help you. Speaking of private Facebook groups, you could be part of the School of Podcasting's private Facebook group. We got our own little community going on over there. Plus, twice a month, we do live group coaching calls. We just had one last weekend, had a great old time. And you also get step-by-step tutorials, and this is the thing that people don't get. I could spend a half hour telling you all the tutorials that are in the School of Podcasting. But I mean, we have worksheets that help you plan your podcast. We have tutorials on how to buy your gear. We have tutorials on how to build your website. We have tutorials on how to plug that gear in, how to use Audacity, how to use Audition, how to use Hindenburg Journalist. It's all there. And the beautiful thing is, if you start it and you go, nah, not for me, that's right. 30-day money back guarantee. Check it out. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/start and use the coupon code LISTENER. That's LISTENER. You will not find that coupon code anyplace online in print. I only say that here because you took the time to listen to this podcast, and it's my way of saying thank you, and I really hope to see you on the inside. So thank you so much. In the future, I'm going to be interviewing Neil Galarte, who is the editor of the Messengers documentary. And I want to get in the mind of an editor, because here's a guy that does editing 24/7 pretty much. And sitting next to him at the movie and seeing him put the movie together, I wanted some insights from Neil. We're going to talk about in that episode kind of shaping your content. I've actually been reading a couple books on how to do different styles of narration, different ways of building a story. So we're going to be talking a little bit about shaping your content in ways that can really make it just pop and really engage your audience. So see, I'm already engaging with my cat. He's loving it. I don't know if you guys can hear that. He's singing his praises in here. So Bernie is alive and well. And I'm going to share one itty bitty story here. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, take this attitude. What's the worst that could happen? And I'm going to share right now. My sister-in-law is a hopeless romantic and has been trying to set me up ever since I got divorced. And so she gave me this woman's phone number. She seemed kind of cute. I saw her picture somewhere on Facebook or something like that. And I did not call her. I had imposter syndrome. In the immortal words of Bruce Springsteen, you end up like a dog that's been beat too much. And so I had the mindset kind of like, hey, what's the worst that could happen? And so I called her. Okay. You know, I called her. It was awkward and we're getting there, but you don't know unless you try. So take that attitude when it comes to podcasting. Maybe you've got something and you're just dying to talk about it and you want to tell the world about it and you want to engage other people and you want to find other people who think just like you and feel just like you. They're there. They're waiting for you to start your podcast. And if you're like, I don't want to look stupid. I'm not sure what to do. You know what? What's the worst that could happen? You're out $80 on a microphone that you can sell on eBay. Really. So I really, really look forward to working with you at the School of Podcasting. Sign up today, schoolofpodcasting.com/start. And we'll see you next week. Until then, take care. God bless. Class is dismissed.